A very good afternoon to all my dear accountancy students and welcome back to the lecture of Advanced Accounting and Auditing Paper 2 Sybcom Semester 3. I, Professor Shaurya Shah, welcome you all to our lecture. Dear students, in the last lecture, we completed the other part of your Unit 1, that is Concepts under your Companies Act 2013. So far, we have completed one person company, issued capital, paid up capital, and various kinds of other capital that includes your authorized capital, subscribed capital, called up capital, uncalled capital, so on. Right, students? In the last lecture, I gave you a brief idea regarding your public company also. Fine. So today we'll be completing the other two concepts under this chapter, that is related to your public company and private company. Right. So I hope everyone of you are ready for the lecture. Let's begin. Now, dear students, in the last lecture, right, we saw what do you mean by public companies in brief, right? Now, again, today we'll be doing it in detail. What do you mean by a public company, students, right? Now, for example, there are various kinds of companies, right? When you classify the companies according to the various forms, that is according to classification, according to their registration, according to their paid up capital, there may be foreign company, there may be public company, there may be private company, there may be a government company, there may be a chartered company, fully paid up company, so on and so far, right? But we are in advanced accounting and auditing, so you need to study all the concepts, right, regarding your Companies Act 2013 only, right? So in your syllabus you need to study only two main types, that is public companies and private company. Now, what do you mean by public company, students? According to the section 2 subsection 71, right, this is the most important thing you need to remember in the definition also, under which section the particular concept is given, right? So according to section 2 subsection 71 of Companies Act, a public company means a company which is not a private company, right? So now what is a private company, that we'll see today, but for this particular point of time you need to just remember a company which is not a private company is a public company, has minimum paid up capital of 5 lakh rupees, right? Now you all are very much clear with the paid up capital concept also, we saw the examples for it. Fine. So has a minimum paid up capital of 5 lakh or higher, right? Higher there is no cap, but for lower it is capped, that is related to 5 lakh, and is a private company which is a subsidiary of public company, right? Subsidiary and holding company also we know. So private company which is a subsidiary of public company is also termed as your public company only, right? So am I clear? It is three types, right? First of all, it is given under section 2 subsection 71. Three things includes your public company, that is it is not a private company, has a minimum paid up capital of 5 lakh rupees or such higher paid up capital, and is a private company which is a subsidiary of a holding company, that is public company. Hope it is done, all of you. Now this was the basic definition, students. Now you need to understand the various characteristics, right? Now when you will go through the reference book, whatever reference book you are following, either BSR or Popular, right, they have given certain additional information, right? What I have taken here is the main bullet points of the entire short note which you need to write down in your exam. Fine. So if you remember this main head points, then you can write down the certain additional again equations or certain additional points in that particular head points, right? But this is the main crux which you need to remember. So how many members are required, students, right? As I told in the last lecture also, minimum 7 members and maximum unlimited members, right? So if you are starting a public company, minimum number of members you require is 7 and maximum is unlimited, right? Why it is unlimited, students? Because this is related to your public subscription, right? So again, if it is a public subscription open to all, then there is no limit for the members to be kept in a company. That is why the upper limit is unlimited and minimum is 7. Remember, for private company also we will see. The securities of a public company may be quoted on a stock exchange, right? Now you all must be aware with the concept of your stock exchange also. You have Sensex, that is Bombay Stock Exchange, you have NSE, National Stock Exchange, right? So stock exchanges are the place where your shares of the public limited companies are traded, right? So again, any securities of public company can be quoted on your stock exchanges. The securities of any member in a public company shall be freely transferable. Definitely. If it is quoted on your share market, that is your stock exchanges, then it can be freely transferable. For example, today I am having a share of certain company, ABC Public Limited, right? So I can sell this shares to any other member also, or to any other party without any restrictions, right? So shall be freely transferable. Again, the name of public limited companies ends with the words limited, right? We'll see the examples also. For example, right now is your RIL, right? That is Reliance Industries Limited. So RIL, every company you are having will have the word that is limited behind it, right? So we'll see the examples when we see it. Fine. A public company can raise its capital by issue of shares to the public. Now, whatever shares are issued, right? Private company is not having any kind of rights to issue the share in the public, but only the public company, right? So all the shares which are traded on stock exchanges also, or any IPO which come, IPO is your initial public offering, right? So that comes, that is related to public company only. Fine. So am I clear with all these parts? Fine. So what we have seen till now, students, is, right, your short note will be clear within the lecture itself. What we have seen till now is, it is your section 2 subsection 71. It is not a private company, has a minimum capital of 5 lakh, maximum no limit, and it is a private company which is a subsidiary of a public company. Then it should have minimum 7 members, maximum unlimited. Securities can be quoted on stock exchange. Securities can be sold freely and it is transferable. Public company ends with limited word, and public company can raise its capital by issue of shares to public. I hope it is clear to each and everyone. Now examples you can see, right? I have taken the examples from your everyday life only, so that whenever you again go to the economy or you go to the market, you can again analyze on your own which companies are private company and which companies are public limited companies, right? So that you can analyze it. Very first example which I give you is of Reliance Industries Limited, right? A very famous industry. Mukesh Ambani, you all are knowing, is the chairman of this industry. So limited word, that is the shares of Reliance are freely quoted in the market, that is stock exchanges. Anybody can purchase the share of Reliance, anybody can sell it, right? So, and again, Reliance, just now only few weeks back, the IPO of Reliance came into the market, right? In order to take the share capital from the common public, right? So limited word you can find. HDFC Bank is also limited, right? So HDFC Bank Limited, similarly ICICI Bank Limited, though they are not writing the word limited, but when you see any kind of documents, right, official letterpad of the company, of the bank, you can find that the word is written, right? State Bank of India Limited, Infosys, Tata Consultancy Services, ITC Limited, right? This is again a very famous company in your FMCG products. It is your Indian Tobacco Company Limited, right? So that is related to your biscuits. That is mainly the brands are Sunfeast. Then it is also into your shampoos and soaps making. So all these companies are very famous examples of your public limited companies. Fine. Again, few more examples, students. You all must be aware, right? Bharat Petroleum. That is your, its full name is your BPCL, right? Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited. Again, a government company, but it is public limited. HP, Indian Oil, as you can see, NTPC, that is related to your power. GAIL India Limited, that is related to your gas. Coal India Limited, right? So you can analyze, students, everywhere the word limited is written. Fine. ONGC is also one of the very famous company. So you can find out in such a way. I hope it is clear to each and every student, right? So this was your public company limited examples. With examples, you can understand it in a much better way. Now, a public company or a private company, whatever the case is, right, can be divided into three companies. In the last lecture, I gave you a brief idea about it, students, right? So, in three categories, you can divide these companies. The very first amongst that is your limited liability company, right? Now, what do you mean by limited liability company, students? It is a limited liability company in a sense, right, that it is limited by your shares, fine. The liability of the members is only limited up to the amount which is unpaid on your shares. Fine. So again, this is given in your section 2 subsection 22 of Companies Act. Fine. What is limited liability? Again, a limited liability means, for example, understand it with the example, students. If the share is 10 rupees, right, company has called up only 7 rupees. Company has called up 7 rupees and I have paid 7 rupees to the company, right? So in that case, my liability is limited only up to the amount which is unpaid, that is 3 rupees per share, right? So 10 rupees share was there. So if I can say my total liability is 10 rupees, but out of 10 rupees, 7 rupees is already paid up by me, right? So my liability, if any case company goes into liquidation, you all are very much clear with liquidation, right? So if any time liquidation happens, then my liability is only related to your 3 rupees, fine. I hope it is clear. So the limited liability means if limited up to the unpaid amount. Unlimited liability, students, right? Unlimited liability again given in section 2 subsection 92 of Companies Act. What do you mean by unlimited liability? It is a company where the liability of its member is unlimited, right? It is not related to face value, it is not related to guarantee, right? Unless and until your total debts of the companies are not paid up, right? You have to give the amount up to the certain extent to the company. Even you have to sell your personal assets in order to pay the liability, right? Such type of companies are not present in India, at least, right? It is available in foreign companies, but it is a very risky concept. That is why such kind of companies are not organized, fine. And the third is your a company limited by guarantee, right? What do you mean by a company limited by guarantee? Fine. Again, it is a kind of company, students, where the memorandum of association respectively undertake to contribute the assets of the company in event of its being wound up, right? So what do you mean by that? Shareholders give the guarantee up to a particular amount, right? For example, my paid up capital is 2 lakh rupees, but in the very beginning of the company, when we start with the memorandum of association, right, we will decide in advance up to what amount I am giving the guarantee to pay back the liabilities, right? So many a times it happens that during liquidation, suppose I gave the guarantee of 5 lakh rupees apart from a paid up capital. So I need to pay 5 lakh rupees at the time of liquidation. Some may give more guarantee, some may give less guarantee, right? Completely depends upon the memorandum of association and articles of association of the company. So that is known as, students, a company which is limited by guarantee. I hope it is clear. Both of this can be part in either public company or private company, right? So it is a common heading which you can write in both the companies. So first is limited liability, means limited only up to the unpaid capital. Unlimited liability, there is no limit, you have to pay all the debts. A company limited by guarantee, limited only up to the guaranteed amount, fine. So I suppose each and everyone now clear with the public company, its features, its examples and its types. I hope it is clear. Now moving on to the next part, students, is your private company, right? The last concept under this chapter. What do you mean by private company? Exactly opposite of your public limited company, right? We saw the definition of public limited, that is, it is not a private company. So what is a private company? Under section 268, right? Again, you need to understand, under section 268 deals with private company under Companies Act 2013. The provisions of private company are very similar to partnership form in India, right? Definitely. You all must have studied various forms of businesses during your school time, right? Again, it is sole proprietorship, partnership, HUF, joint stock company. So joint stock company emerged on the basis of the limitations of partnership form only, right? So whatever provisions of private company are there, that is related to partnership only. Private companies are one of the most famous forms of business across the globe, right? So again, private companies are one of the most famous forms you can find across the world. Now, what is the definition of private company, students? According to section 268 of Companies Act, a private company is a company which restricts the right to transfer its shares. In public company, transfer was freely done. Here, restricts the right to shares its transfers, right? Except in case of one person company, limits the number of members to 200, right? We have seen one person company in detail. One person company where only one member is there, right? Again, we saw one person company is a form of private limited company only, but except in case of OPC, the maximum numbers you can have in a company is 200. In public company, the number was unlimited, right? Here it is 200. Minimum paid up capital of rupees 1 lakh is now removed, and now a private company and public company can have share capital as the promoters decide, right? Students, earlier it was there a case where in the definition it was included. What is a private company? Where it restricts the right to transfer its share, except in case of OPC, limits the number of members to 200, and the third condition was it should have a minimum paid up capital of rupees 1 lakh, right? But now as per the amendment of 2015 in Companies Act, it is now removed, right? So you need to write down separately, minimum paid up capital of 1 lakh is now removed, and now a private and public company can have share capital as the promoters decide, right? I hope, am I clear? Restriction on issue of securities to common public for subscription. Definitely, as the transfer of shares is also restricted, the issue of securities to common public for subscription is also restricted, right? So only the members of the company, right? Remember, members of private company can only transfer their shares within themselves, and again it is restricted. Now, who are not included in the member strength of 200 students? Following persons shall not be included in number of members. Who? Persons who are in employment of the company, right? So those who are in employment of the company, we can say the employees of the company cannot be termed, because employees can be in thousands of numbers if your company is on very large scale, right? So again, persons who are in employment cannot be considered. Person who have been formerly in employment, means our past employees were the members of the company while in employment, have continued to be members after employment, right? Those who are, understand this point very carefully students, those who are past in employment of the company and were also the members of the company, but while in employment have continued to be members after employment also, right? So even they have left the company, right? So they can also become the member of the companies, so they will also be included. I hope it is clear. Fine. So understand the 2 points. It is very technical thing, but you need to understand simply the points, right? Those who are in employment of the company, not included. Those who are formerly in employment were the members of the company while in employment. Now again to be continued as your members after employment. I hope it is clear. Fine. So that is your private limited company. Let us see the examples of your private limited company. Google, you all must be very much familiar. Our everyday, again, we can say the search engine, right? So Google India Private Limited, fine. So one thing you need to understand here, students, is in private company, as we saw in public company, the term limited was added at the end of the company's name. Here, compulsory they have to add the word private limited so that people can come to know that it is a private limited company, right? Again, you can see that the shares of the Google are not available in the market, right? Because it is closely held, that is private limited. Marriott Hotels India Private Limited, you all must be aware. Again, in Surat also we are having Marriott Hotel, that is your Marriott Hotels Private Limited. The headquarters is in Mumbai. Lifestyle International Private Limited, right? So again, Lifestyle, you can find out the brand for particularly your clothes and apparels. Microsoft Corporation India Private Limited, right? So Microsoft, the computers, the laptops we are using, right? That is also the software which is produced. That is Microsoft Corporation India Private Limited. So private limited word you can find out everywhere. I hope it is clear, right? Apart from that, there are various others restrictions related to your private companies and related to your public companies, that you can read it in detail when you get the reference book. Fine, in that it is given. But for understanding, these are the basic, we can say, the characteristics of public company and private company, right? Other 4 to 5 points are there that are related to your appointment of directors, because it is amended from time to time, right? So that we'll see when the latest amendment comes, right? So again, there are various kinds of appointment related to directors, number of directors, then related to your various kinds of capital, and then related to your various kinds of annual general meeting, right? But that is least important. The most important thing, that is your definition, who are the members in it and who are not, and related to your the words which are used and the obligations, right? I hope it is clear. So this was your first chapter, students, right? We have completed the entire chapter. Let us have a glimpse over what we did in the past two lectures quickly, so that your lecture is again brushed up. Fine. We saw the very first thing in this chapter, that was your financial year, right? Now financial year, the term itself says it is from 1st April to 31st March. That also we continued with that. Again, What was your financial year in relation to any company? Section 2 subsection 41 gave you that particular definition, right? It is the period on the ending of 31st March every year, and where it has been incorporated on or after first day of January every year, the period ending on 31st March of the following year, right? So generally it is 1st April to 31st March, but those companies who are established after 31st January, right? So that is again we can say 1st January. So their financial year ends on the next 31st March, right? Not the coming 31st March after 3 months, but next 31st March. This all we saw, right? Again, various kinds of subsidiary company, holding company, we saw that is we have to give an application to the company or body corporate, right? Again, registrar, so that their period is changed. This all we saw in detail, students, right? So major takeaways we need to understand, that is from 1st April to 31st March, existing companies or body corporate had a transitional period of 2 years, right? In order to again change their financial year, they had a time period of 2 years in holding and subsidiary company. Next we saw was one person company, right? One person company, as the name suggests, there is only one member, one karta dharta of the entire company, right? So one person company has only one member. We saw it in detail. He will be the shareholder of the company and avails all the benefits of a private limited company. Now you all are aware with the concept of private limited also, right? Again, the concept of OPC is now new vehicle of business introduced by the Companies Act. As I also informed you, right? This is the very first time the Corporate Affairs Ministry has inserted this concept in India particularly, right? Earlier it was not there in 1956 Companies Act. We saw the various features also in detail, right? That is separate legal entity incorporated as a private limited company, must have only one member. Again, the member and nominee should not be the natural persons. We saw what is natural persons also, Indian citizen and resident in India in detail, fine. So all these features we had understood very carefully. Then again we saw the various characteristics, students. Only one slide gives you the entire idea regarding your one person company, and you can form points of out this also. Next we saw in the last lecture, that was your share capital. What do you mean by share capital, students? The total capital of the company is divided into various sub parts, that is small parts, and each part is known as your share, right? So any joint stock company is based upon your share capital only. We had seen the various kinds of share capital, the entire family of authorized capital we saw, right? Authorized capital, and again we can say two children, issued capital, unissued capital. Issued capital, again it is your family tree, that is subscribed capital and unsubscribed capital. In subscribed capital we saw called up, uncalled up. Again we saw paid up, calls in areas, unreserved and reserved capital, right? Again we saw the concept of capital reserve also. Most important is your issued capital and paid up capital, right? That are the two things which are included in your syllabus. We saw authorized capital is the total capital, right? Issued capital is the amount of shares issued from your authorized capital. You need to understand, most important is the section and the definition, right? Apart from that, you can give one of the examples. Subscribed also we saw, out of issued, subscribed comes, right? That is the number of shares which are subscribed by the members of the company. We saw the again called up capital also, students, that part which is called up. So I give you the example, very simple. 10 rupees is the issued authorized capital, right? For example, it is your total capital. 10 rupees each share, and there are 1000 shares, right? So total capital is 10,000. That is my authorized capital. Out of 10,000, I have issued 7,000 rupees capital. That is 700 shares of 10 rupees each. So 7,000 is my issued capital. Out of 7,000 shares, 6,000 shares were subscribed. So 6,000 into 10 is my subscribed capital, right? Again, out of 6,000 shares, 10 rupees each, I have called only 7 rupees. So again, 7 rupees into 6,000 shares gives me the value of my called up capital. And out of that, whatever I have received is my paid up capital, right? So we understood all this concept. Again, I give you the example of the glass in the water, on the basis of which you can calculate the authorized capital and paid up capital. Uncalled capital is the part which has not yet been called. Again, that will be called only if any further needs are there in the company. Reserve capital. This is the part of capital which can be only called up at the time of liquidation. How can it be decided? A resolution is passed in the company, right? We saw capital reserve also, it is a different part. Capital reserve is created out of profits, and reserve capital is a part of capital which is kept aside, right? We saw this example, one master example, to understand everything, right? So just now I gave you the example: authorized capital 10,000 shares, issued capital 7,000 shares, subscribed capital 6,000 shares, called up capital again 7 rupees into 6,000, paid up capital whatever amount you have received, and unpaid capital whatever you have not received. 3 rupees is my uncalled capital. I hope it is clear to each and every student. Fine. So this is all, students, we had studied. Fine. This is your entire first chapter that you need to understand. 4 marks short note. Mind well, right? Out of this entire chapter, there will be sure 4 mark short note which will come in your exam, and you need to prepare it. And liquidation chapter is also clear, I suppose. Fine. So again, the notes will be provided very soon to you people. Start studying it so that you are complete with your 2 chapters. In the next lecture, we will start with the practical chapter of your absorption, right? Absorption of your companies. So first we'll understand the theory part of that chapter, then we'll be moving on to the practical sums also, right? So again, in absorption we'll be going very slow, so that because sums are lengthy, you need to prepare journal entries, you need to prepare various accounts, and you need to prepare the new balance sheet for that, right? So everything will be provided. Mind well, accounts is very easy if you understand the concepts, right? So keep learning, practice sums every day, practice accounts every day. Everything will be done very easily. Fine. So this is Professor Shaurya Shah taking your leave, students. Thank you for the day. Have a good day ahead. See you in the next lecture. You are learning advanced accounting and auditing by Professor Shaurya Shah. Thank you very much, students.